First contact and shock. The Viridian Collective had conquered 17 star systems in the last century alone. Their sleek bioorganic ships moved through space like predatory fish in a cosmic ocean, elegant and deadly. As a species, they'd evolved from pack hunters on their homeworld of Viridia Prime, six-limbed creatures with iridescent scales and compound eyes that could process visual information faster than most sentient beings could think. Supreme Commander Zilith stood on the command deck of the Inevitable Conquest, flagship of the Viridian expansion fleet. His secondary limbs twitched with anticipation as the holographic display showed their next target, a small blue-green world in an unremarkable system. Target assessment complete. Supreme Commander, reported Science Director Thalax, her scales shifting to a formal blue-green pattern. The dominant species appears to have achieved rudimentary spaceflight. They maintain several orbital habitats and have established minor colonies on their moon and neighboring planet. Zilith's mouthparts clicked dismissively. Industrial capacity. Moderate. They've mastered nuclear fission and fusion. No evidence of gravitational manipulation or faster-than-light technology. Weapons systems. Chemical propellants. Nuclear warheads. Primitive energy weapons. Nothing that could penetrate even our tertiary shields. Thalax's voice carried the slight harmonic that indicated certainty. They call themselves humans, and their world Earth. Zilith's primary eyes narrowed. Another simple conquest. Then, the Viridian Collective's pattern never varied. Identify developing worlds, subjugate them quickly, integrate their resources and any useful biological traits into the collective. 17 systems had fallen this way, most barely understanding what had happened until Viridian dominance was already established. Standard approach pattern, Zilith commanded. Deploy the Vanguard fleet to establish orbital supremacy. I want atmospheric processors deployed within 2 planetary rotations. The command crew clicked their affirmations. The Viridian Invasion Force, 50 bioorganic warships ranging from swift attackers to massive planetary subjugators, began their methodical approach to the Sol system. As they passed the orbit of the gas giant these humans called Jupiter, long-range sensors detected something unexpected. Supreme Commander, there's a vessel approaching, reported Tactical Officer Kress. Single ship, moving at high velocity directly toward our position. Zilith felt mild surprise. A greeting party, or perhaps a sacrifice to appease us. Unknown, Commander, but it's accelerating. Current trajectory indicates intercept with our Vanguard in 17 time units. A ripple of amusement passed through the command crew. The humans had sent a single ship to confront the might of the Viridian Collective. Such primitive naivety was almost endearing. Display the vessel, ordered Zilith. The holographic projection shifted to show the approaching ship. It wasn't what they expected. The human vessel was massive, nearly a quarter the size of the Inevitable Conquest itself, with a dark hull that seemed to absorb rather than reflect sensor scans. Its design was unlike the primitive orbital habitats they'd observed near Earth. This ship had the unmistakable profile of a warship, with what appeared to be weapon emplacements along its length. Unexpected design evolution, noted Thalax, her scales shifting to a curious purple. Perhaps we underestimated their technological progress. Irrelevant, said Zilith. Even if they've developed true warships, they cannot stand against our fleet. Kress analyzed their weapons capabilities. Kress initiated a deep scan, then hissed in confusion. Supreme Commander, our scans cannot penetrate their hull material. We're getting contradictory readings. Zilith's scales rippled with irritation. Impossible. Increase scan power. Already at maximum, Commander. The material appears to be shifting somehow, absorbing and redirecting our scan energy. Before Zilith could respond, Communications Officer Meryl's scales flashed alarm yellow. Incoming transmission from the human vessel. Supreme Commander. Display it. The holographic projector showed a human figure, pink-skinned, bipedal, with peculiar fur on part of its head. It wore a dark uniform with symbols Zilith couldn't interpret. "This is Captain Eleanor Chen of the United Earth Defense Force vessel Defiance," the human said, its voice translated by the ship's systems. "You have entered restricted space without authorization. Power down your weapon systems and prepare to be escorted out of the Sol system, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Zilith stared at the projection, then broke into the chittering laugh unique to Viridians. "They're threatening us? With a single ship?" He gestured dismissively. "Inform the Vanguard to eliminate this annoyance." 5 Viridian attack ships broke formation, accelerating toward the lone human vessel. Each was a marvel of bioorganic engineering, living ships with crystalline weapon nodes that could channel devastating energy beams. They'd obliterated entire defense fleets on other worlds. The human ship didn't alter course. It didn't attempt evasive maneuvers. It simply continued its direct approach. "The human vessel is powering up systems," reported Kress. "Energy readings are." "Supreme Commander, these readings can't be correct." "Explain," demanded Zilith. "The energy output. It's exceeding anything we've encountered from a civilization at their development stage. It's approaching collective capital ship levels." Zilith's mandibles tightened. "Impossible. Their planet shows clear evidence of limited energy production capabilities. They must be." "The human ship is firing," interrupted Kress. On the holographic display, the Defiance released what appeared to be a small projectile. It moved with impossible speed, leaving a distortion in space behind it. Before any countermeasures could be deployed, it struck the lead Viridian attack ship. The entire vessel simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not shattered. It vanished, along with a spherical section of space around it. Silence fell over the command deck. "Report," Zilith finally managed. "Attack ship Relentless Hunter is gone." "Supreme Commander," said Kress, his scales paling to shocked white. "Complete atomic dissolution. The weapon appears to have created a momentary artificial singularity." "Impossible," whispered Thalax. "That technology requires energy manipulation beyond anything we've achieved, even after 12,000 cycles of scientific advancement." The remaining 4 attack ships scattered, firing their crystalline energy weapons at the human vessel. Shots that should have vaporized the ship merely flared against some kind of defensive field that hadn't been visible before. The Defiance fired again. 2 more Viridian ships vanished from existence. "Full fleet defensive formation," ordered Zilith, his voice rising with something the Viridians rarely experienced: fear. "All ships, concentrate fire." The Viridian fleet regrouped with practiced precision, bringing hundreds of weapon systems to bear on the single human ship. Space lit up with crystalline energy beams and bioplasma torpedoes. The Defiance weathered the barrage, its defensive field flaring but holding. Then it unleashed a different weapon, a wave of energy that spread outward, washing over the nearest Viridian vessels. Their bioorganic systems went dark, the living ships suddenly inert. "What is happening?" demanded Zilith. "Some kind of targeted electromagnetic pulse," said Thalax, her voice shaking. "But it's selective. It's only affecting our ships." "That's not possible," insisted Zilith. "No species has ever developed weapons that can distinguish between targets at the electromagnetic level." The human ship fired again and again. Each shot precise, each impact devastating. Within minutes, 27 Viridian vessels had been destroyed or disabled. The remainder attempted to regroup, but their coordination was shattered by the unexpected onslaught. Another transmission came from the Defiance. "This is your final warning," said Captain Chen, her expression unchanged. "The next shot will be directed at your command vessel. Withdraw immediately." Zilith stared at the human, searching for signs of bluff or deception. He found none. "Supreme Commander," said Kress quietly, "the human vessel has locked weapons on our position. Energy readings indicate their next attack will be significantly more powerful than previous ones." For the first time in his decorated military career, Supreme Commander Zilith gave the order he'd never imagined would pass his mouthparts. Signal the retreat. All functional vessels to execute emergency dimensional fold back to collective space. As the remnants of the once mighty Viridian fleet retreated, Zilith watched the human ship on the display. It didn't pursue. It simply maintained position, a sentinel guarding its system. How? He finally asked, turning to Science Director Thalax. How could we have missed this level of technology? Thalax's scales had shifted to the deep blue of deep analytical thought. Perhaps we didn't miss it, Supreme Commander. Perhaps they were hiding it. The implication sent a chill through Zilith's exoskeleton. A species that could hide its true capabilities, that could develop weapons beyond even the collective's understanding, and that chose to remain isolated rather than expand. What kind of species develops planet-killing weapons but doesn't use them to conquer? He wondered aloud. I don't know, replied Thalax, but I think we need to find out. Understanding and adaptation. The Grand Hall of the Viridian High Command had never seen such disarray. 13 fleet commanders, 7 science directors, and the 3 evolutionary guides who formed the ruling triumvirate of the collective had assembled in emergency session. The atmosphere was thick with pheromones of distress and confusion as Supreme Commander Zilith completed his report. The human vessel Defiance neutralized over half our invasion fleet in less than 1 planetary rotation. He concluded, his scales shifted to the formal reporting pattern despite his inner turmoil. Their technology demonstrates capabilities we believe to be theoretical at best. Fleet Commander Voss's mandibles clicked in skepticism. 1 ship, Supreme Commander, against our bioorganic fleet. Perhaps your sensors were malfunctioning. I've reviewed the data myself, interjected Science Director Thalax before Zilith could respond. The recordings are accurate. The human vessel deployed weapons that created localized singularities and targeted electromagnetic disruption fields calibrated specifically to our bioneural networks. Evolutionary Guide Zilara, the eldest of the triumvirate, leaned forward. Her ancient scales had faded to a pale blue with age. In 17 planetary conquests, we have never encountered such resistance. What makes these humans different? We've been conducting intensive analysis since our return, said Thalax. There are several anomalies that may explain their unexpected capabilities. She activated a holographic display showing the Sol system. First, their development pattern is highly unusual. Most species we've encountered show relatively consistent technological advancement across all domains. The humans have extreme variation. They developed nuclear weapons before achieving reliable spaceflight. They created global communication networks before solving basic resource distribution problems. Inefficient, noted Fleet Commander Drax. Perhaps, continued Thalax, but it creates unpredictable advancement spikes. More concerning is their information pattern. A hologram shifted to show a complex network visualization. Most developing civilizations broadcast their capabilities openly. Scientific achievements, military demonstrations, industrial capacities. Humans compartmentalize information to an extreme degree. What they show publicly may represent only a fraction of their true capabilities. Evolutionary Guide Korth's scales shifted to a skeptical orange. You suggest deliberate deception. On a planetary scale, I suggest a species that evolved with unusual threat responses, replied Thalax. Their biological history shows they were both predator and prey on their homeworld. They developed hierarchical social structures with complex internal competition alongside cooperation against external threats. A species that wars with itself cannot achieve true technological greatness, said Korth dismissively. This is established evolutionary doctrine. Thalax's scales flashed briefly with the purple of scientific excitement. That's just it, Guide Korth. The humans appear to defy that doctrine. Their internal conflicts seem to accelerate rather than hinder their technological development. Their weapons technology, in particular, demonstrates advancement rates approximately 310% faster than their general technology curve would predict. An uncomfortable silence fell over the assembly as they processed this information. Supreme Commander Zilith finally spoke. We have two options. We can assemble the Grand Fleet, all 7,000 vessels, and overwhelm this system through sheer numbers. Or we can attempt diplomatic contact to better understand what we're facing. The assembly erupted in chittering debate. The Viridian Collective had never considered diplomacy with a pre-collective species before. The very concept was alien to their expansionist philosophy. Evolutionary guide Zilara raised her primary limbs, silencing the chamber. Before we decide, I want to understand what happened after the engagement. The humans had clearly superior firepower. Why didn't they pursue and destroy your remaining forces, Commander Zilith? I've been analyzing that question, Guide, replied Zilith. The simplest explanation is that they're territorial, not expansionist. They had the capability to destroy us, but chose demonstration over annihilation. Or they have limited resources, suggested Fleet Commander Voss. Perhaps they can only field a small number of these advanced vessels. If so, said Zilith, why reveal such capabilities against a relatively small invasion force? No, I believe they were sending a message. Zilara's ancient eyes studied Zilith. And what message would that be, Commander? Leave us alone, or we will show you what we're truly capable of. The Grand Hall fell silent again. I propose a compromise, said Science Director Thalax. A diplomatic mission, but prepared for scientific and military observation. We approach openly, with a small contingent of vessels to show peaceful intent, but equipped to gather more data on their true capabilities. Evolutionary Guide Zilara conferred briefly with her fellow Triumvirate members, then nodded. Approved. Supreme Commander Zilith, you've encountered them before. You will lead this mission. 3 cycles later, Zilith stood once again on the command deck of the inevitable Conquest, though the ship now flew under a different banner. Its weapon systems were powered down, and it was accompanied by only 2 escort vessels rather than a full invasion fleet. We're receiving a transmission from Earth Orbital Command, reported Communications Officer Merrill. Display it. The holographic projector showed a familiar face, Captain Eleanor Chen of the Defiance. Supreme Commander Zilith, she said, recognizing him immediately. Your request for diplomatic contact has been received. I've been assigned as your liaison. Please maintain your current position, while we prepare a suitable meeting location. Understood, Captain, replied Zilith, studying her carefully. May I ask why you've been selected for this role? I would have expected your government to assign a dedicated diplomatic representative. A slight smile appeared on the human's face. In our culture, Commander, those who create a situation are often tasked with resolving it. I demonstrated our boundaries. Now I'm to help you understand them. Intriguing, thought Zilith. Such pragmatism wasn't common among the hierarchical species they'd encountered. Besides, Chen continued, I have experience with first contact scenarios. Zilith's scales shifted involuntarily to a pattern of surprise. We are not your first extraterrestrial encounter. Chen's smile widened slightly. I didn't say that, Commander. I'll transmit coordinates for our meeting shortly. Chen out. As the transmission ended, Science Director Thalax approached Zilith. Fascinating interaction. They're revealing information while simultaneously creating uncertainty. Yes, agreed Zilith. I'm beginning to understand why they've remained isolated. They don't think like any species we've encountered. The coordinates arrived, directing them to a space station in high Earth orbit. As they approached, sensors revealed it was heavily armed despite its diplomatic designation. The humans were taking no chances. The diplomatic meeting that followed changed the course of Viridian history. Human representatives revealed that they had detected Viridian observation probes years earlier, but had chosen not to respond, instead using the information gathered to prepare defenses specifically designed to counter Viridian technology. They explained their seemingly contradictory nature, a species capable of both savage internal conflicts and remarkable cooperation, of building planet-killing weapons while creating art of breathtaking beauty, of developing technologies to extend life while still embracing the concept of self-sacrifice. We evolved not just to survive, explained elder diplomat Mikhail Livanov. but to adapt. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our ability to change, to incorporate new ideas, to transform ourselves in response to challenges. As the diplomatic mission extended from days into weeks, the Viridians began to grasp a concept foreign to their biological imperatives: mutual coexistence without assimilation. On the 73rd day of the mission, evolutionary guide Zalora herself arrived at the station, the first time in recorded history that a member of the Triumvirate had left collective space. She met privately with human representatives for what they called candid discussions about the future of interspecies relations. When she emerged, her ancient scales had shifted to a pattern no living Viridian had ever seen before, a swirling mixture of colors that somehow conveyed both certainty and transformation. The announcement that followed changed everything. The Viridian Collective would suspend all conquest operations. A new department would be established, the Bureau of Sinological Understanding, dedicated to studying and learning from other species rather than subjugating them. 6 cycles later, Supreme Commander Zilith, now Ambassador Zilith, stood on the observation deck of the New Horizons station, watching as the first joint Viridian human research vessel prepared to depart for unexplored space. "Does it ever bother you?" asked Captain Chen, who had become something of a friend during these years of transition, "that a single encounter so completely changed your civilization's direction?" Zilith's scales rippled with what humans now recognize as thoughtful amusement. "We Viridians have always prided ourselves on superior adaptation. It's the foundation of our evolutionary philosophy. We simply failed to recognize that sometimes adaptation means changing your mind, not just your technology or biology." Chen nodded. "The first human philosopher I'd recommend you study once said, 'It is not the strongest species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change.'" "Wise words," agreed Zilith, "though I suspect your Charles Darwin never imagined his principles would one day be applied to interstellar relations." As they watched the research ship disappear into the darkness of space, Zilith reflected on the strangeness of the universe. The Viridian Collective had set out to conquer Earth, and instead found something far more valuable, a future neither species could have achieved alone. All because they'd encountered a single human warship that changed everything.